If you are struggling with debt and you don't already have a working plan on how to pay it off, today's episode might interest you. I will be talking about effective debt repayment strategies and simple financial tips to just help you navigate debt. Thank you so much for joining me on yet another episode of Finance Friday. My name is Coach Susan. I'm very happy to have you here today. Now, the first thing that you need to do before you start paying off any debt is to conduct a personal debt status analysis. And these are some of the things that a debt analysis entails. The first thing that you need to do is to list each debt that you owe together with the current amount that you owe with all the interest that it has accrued up until this point. All right. The second thing is listing what kind of a debt it is, right? Now, there are different kinds of debts that we owe. Some are interest-bearing loans, others are non-interest-bearing loans. So you need to be able to list down what these debts are. Maybe you could even go a step further and list them down with regards to the order of priority. There are some debts like mobile loans that you must pay, or rather they have a deadline at the end of the month where you need to pay them off. Others are soft loans from from family members and maybe even friends. So you also want to identify of all the debts that you owe, what kind of a debt is it, and even what is the order of priority. If you are to start paying them off, which of these debts need you to pay them first, and which of the debts have little to no pressure for you to be able to pay them off. The other thing that you also need to identify in your debt status analysis is the interest rate on each debt. This is very important. So you want to be able to understand what is the interest rate on this debt. Is it on a monthly basis or is it on an annual basis? If it is on a monthly basis, you want to multiply that by 12 so that you can see exactly how much interest rate you're paying on your loan on an annual basis. This will really help you to identify which of the debts that you need to pay off really quickly. And one of the things that you probably want to prioritize are the debts that pay you an insanely or a crazy high amount of interest, because that means that the longer you wait to pay off that debt, the more money you actually will end up paying, simply because the interest rate is very high. All right. The other thing that you also need to identify is the payment terms for this debt. Some of these debts you must pay on a monthly basis. Let's say maybe this is a bank loan or a SACCO loan that you actually have to service on a month-to-month basis. So you want to identify which of these loans can you pay as a one-off, which of these loans already have a payment structure to them, which of these loans that you owe do you actually have to now come up with a structure, because there's no strategy and there's no payment terms with regards to when you should start paying, how often you want to be paying them, and all that, all those details. All right. You also need to identify what the monthly minimum repayments are for these debts, and that is not enough. After you've been able to identify the monthly repayment minimums, you want to actually go to your budget and include these budget lines. Like if you pay a SACCO loan 7,000 every month, maybe you have a bank loan that you pay 23,000 or an X amount of money every month, that actually needs to feature on your budget, because without that, even if we know the monthly minimum payments that we need to make, then it's pointless. It is only effective when you identify what the monthly minimum repayments are and then include them in your budget. Now, if you don't already have a budget, you can already see how that would be one of the reasons why you fail at your debt repayment strategy. All right. So you want to get a budget. You want to design a budget that not only just identifies how much money should go to your monthly bills, but you should also have a budget that captures how much of your earnings are you committing or are you dedicating towards debt repayment. Now, I do have a resource for you, the Legacy Budget Tracker, that not only just helps you to track your monthly bills, it also helps you to be able to track your debt repayments. It also helps you to track any savings or investments that you're working on. So if you do not already have a budget, Even before we talk about the debt repayment strategies, click the link in the description box to grab yourself a budget tracker that can actually help you to make this journey more seamless for you. Now that we've set the ground rules, let's get ahead to look at the 3 most effective debt repayment strategies that we can employ. The first debt repayment strategy that I would like to highlight is the debt snowball method. In this method, what you ideally do is to list down all your debts from the smallest debt to the highest debt. Once you've been able to do that, the goal is to pay off all these debts, working your way from the smallest debt all the way up to the highest debt that you owe. Remember, the trick here is to do that while you're still making minimum payments on the debts that require you to make monthly minimum payments. Remember that when you fail to pay the monthly minimum payments on the debts that require that, they end up accruing and you dig yourself deeper into debt. All right. Now, why would you pick the debt snowball method as a strategy? Now, this strategy is really good because it ideally helps you to build momentum, and it is also very encouraging when you're keeping track of all the debts that you're paying, and slowly by slowly you just knock off one debt, the next debt, and the other debt. So this is a really good repayment strategy for people like me who require a bit motivation, You also require a confidence booster, because let me tell you, sometimes debt makes you feel like a total failure. I have been there before, and for some people, depending on your money personality, depending on how self-motivated or internally motivated you are as a person, I find that some people pick a wrong strategy that doesn't necessarily help them build momentum. So if you're that person who needs momentum, you need to slowly build your confidence back up as you see one debt fall off and followed by another debt falling off and another one falling off. The debt snowball method is amazing for that. All right. Now, remember, we are still using our budgets to help us do this. So again, just come up with a list. Remember, we already did a list of all the debts that we owe. Now, we've already listed them from the smallest debt all the way to the biggest debt that we owe. And then slowly by slowly, just start picking and building your way or working your way through the that list of debts that you owe. Now, remember, you didn't get into debt overnight, so you're not going to get out of it overnight. So it is important for you to kind of like give yourself, I always tell people, make it practical. You can make 2022 your debt freedom year, or at least the year that you start pursuing debt freedom. All right, so just go a step at a time. Ensure you have a well done budget, an ironclad budget, one that highlights how much money is going towards these debts that you've already decided you're paying, and then just consistently do it every single month. And when you do fall off the wagon, catch yourself early enough and come back to what you had already committed to do. So that is the debt snowball method. Now, the second strategy, or rather the second debt repayment strategy, is what is referred to as the debt avalanche method. Now, the debt avalanche strategy ideally concentrates on paying off the debt that charges you the highest interest. Remember, we already did the list, and we identified what kind of debt we have, including how much interest rates we are paying on these debts. Now, this avalanche method ideally is all about paying off or getting rid of this debt that charges you so much interest rate, like crazy interest rates. And one of these debts is ideally mobile loans. I don't know if any one of you, maybe you guys can let me know in the comment section if you do have a mobile loan, if you're aware how much you are paying with regard to interest. I mean, some people end up paying close to 6%, 7% repayment, or even upwards of that on a monthly basis. Now, per annum, that is crazy, because you have to multiply that 6% times 12 or 7% times 12 months, and that's ideally how much interest you are paying on an annual basis. Now, it is very dangerous to let this kind of debt accrue, because 72% per annum, guys, this is crazy. That's a really high interest rate. So if you have such high interest bearing loans and you want to eliminate them fast, before you start working on maybe the circle loans or the bank loans that are a bit more lenient with regards to interest, then the avalanche method is really good for you. So Unlike the snowball method, now in the avalanche method, what you do is you list this debt from the order of the one that charges you the highest interest all the way down to the one that charges you the least interest. So start by paying off this one that charges you the highest interest. Remember, the common denominator again here is that while still paying monthly, the minimum monthly repayments on the debts that require you to pay minimum monthly repayments, if at all you are able to. All right, so why would you pick the debt avalanche method? The debt avalanche method is ideally amazing to help you cut back on all the interest rate that you might end up paying all these financial institutions that you actually owe. All right. The third repayment strategy is what we refer to as the debt consolidation repayment method. Now, the debt consolidation method ideally combines all your debt into one single debt with one repayment, one repayment amount, one interest rate, and a fixed repayment schedule. All right, so let's assume I have 3 different mobile loans. I owe Wanjiku 70,000, I owe Njogu another 50,000, and ideally what this does is that you are under heavy stress. I don't know if any one of you has been in like drowning in multiple debt. At some point you can't even pick your calls because everyone needs their money. And if you are in trouble with the mobile loans, you know, they keep following up, they keep calling you, they threaten to call your employer and all those things. Now, repaying off your debt when that is your situation, it is quite difficult because you may want to use the snowball method, but remember the snowball method is it's literally a slow process to kind of like help you to get out of debt. It takes time, right? And then we have the avalanche method. I mean, if we are still paying bills and, you know, our income is probably limited and we have savings and investments that we are trying to do, the debt avalanche and the debt snowball method are ideally slow repayment strategies. Slow but sure. But then there's a special case of people who find themselves where I actually cannot choose which of these debts I will start with first because all of these debts require me to pay them now, right? They require me to pay this particular month. Mobile, the Tala needs me to pay them this month. Branch needs me to pay them this month. Mshwari needs to me to pay them this month. Or Pesa, or Cash, whatever, whoever it is that you owe. And on top of all that, you still have your bank loans and you still have Susan that is calling you or Njoroge that is calling you to actually ask for their money. If you're in that situation, it is very impossible for you to actually just focus on a repayment strategy that will help you to slowly knock off all these debts one by one. And this is where the debt consolidation strategy comes in. All right. So how do you actually effect the debt consolidation? Debt consolidation ideally will have you again list all of these debts that you owe together with their updated amounts as they are and calculate what the total figure of those loans are. So maybe you are working with 100,000, 500,000, 1 million probably, or even more. But this is all the debt that you need to consolidate into one debt. So how exactly does consolidation work? Consolidation includes, or rather involves, you picking a financial institution that either offers debt consolidation services. So we want to look at now the thing about the banks or financial institutions that will offer you debt consolidation services or products is that they will actually need to look into your credit and to see whether you're credit worthy, and to understand, or rather to look at whether you can be able to pay off this debt, right? So sometimes that may have already disqualified some people who are already either listed by in the CRB, or you just have bad credit, right? So other than a bank or a formal financial institution, what are the options that you have if you would want to consolidate your debt? The first option is probably to look at a SACCO. If you're already in a SACCO and you don't have collateral to give, right? So you want to probably select a SACCO that you are already in, that you know people who can sign off for you as guarantors, right? So let's say your total debt amounts to like 1 million, right? Most SACCOs give you loans of up to 3 times your total savings. So obviously you must have used the SACCO for a while, or you must have had some savings between and have been a member between 3 to 6 months, right? And then you want to take off that loan, the 1 million, to clear all of these small, very annoying debts. Okay, so you want to pay Susan, Jogo, Njoroge, you want to pay Tala, you want to pay Mshwari. For a moment there, you just want to breathe. Okay, so once you've been able, remember the whole point of consolidation is to have only one debt with one repayment amount and with one interest rate, as opposed to multiple debts that are driving you crazy. All right, so you want to either check out a SACCO. If you're lucky enough to have SIN, and I use the word SIN to just merely imply that sometimes when you're trying to borrow your friend's money or you're trying to borrow your family money, it can get complicated. Maybe if you guys are able to uncomplicate the situation by having very clear repayment terms, and just because we are friends or family doesn't mean we now treat money unprofessionally. We want to be very professional in our dealing. So whether you guys are going to have a written contract that is ratified by a lawyer or an advocate, whoever you get, as long as you get someone, one person. Remember, we want to take this loan from one person or one institution, so that we can have one repayment amount per month, one interest strategy, one interest rate, and just a repayment schedule that works well for you. Okay, so you just want to have one account. And when you just have one account that you're focusing on to actually be able to pay this debt, it honestly increases your focus. It kind of like helps you to calm down. No one is now blowing your phone. There's no one you're hiding from, and there's no multiple debts that you can't actually even be able to keep tabs. To rather be able to keep tabs on. All right, so you want to look at soft loans from family, from friend, ratify them legally to make that whole situation not tricky or even a SACCO. So once you've been able to identify that, get the money, pay off all these small annoying debts, and then remain with this one loan that you consolidated. And if you're lucky to get one from a SACCO, you have like 48 months to 60 months, either 4 years or 5 years, to slowly be able to pay off that debt. All right, so those are the 3 repayment strategies. Now before we log off, we want to actually look at, okay, what next? Now that I have done my analysis, my debt status analysis, I know where I am at. And then number 2, I have been able to know that I have 3 repayment strategies. I have the debt snowball strategy, I have the avalanche strategy, and then I have the debt consolidation strategy. What is the next step from here? Let's quickly look at what to do. All right, step number 1 is to actually choose a repayment strategy. All right, so does this snowball method apply to you right now, or is it the avalanche method that applies to you right now, or is it the consolidation method that aligns with you right now? Now, I get a lot of people asking me, so coach, which is the best option? How do I know which is the best option for me? And I've always told people, all of these strategies work. All right, the best one for you is the one that you can stick to. It is the one that you can actually consistently stick to through the long haul, whether that is throughout the year or a couple of years or a couple of months. The best strategy, there's no one strategy that competes with the other. All of these strategies, remember, serve very different scenarios or situations of people, right? So you want to pick the one that, having looked at all the characteristics of these 3 repayment strategies, the best one is the one that works for you, the one that applies to your individual situation, and the one, most importantly, that you can stick to consistently until you are done paying off your debt. All right, so let's get that out of the way. After you've identified the repayment strategy, what next? You must have a budget. If you've been on this channel long enough, you know I scream budgets every one of my episodes, because budgeting is ideally literally it is at the foundation of financial freedom. Because we've already said this. I love what Dave Ramsey says, that budgeting is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. A lot of us don't have a prescriptive budget, so we are unable to tell, this is where I would like my money to go, and we don't even have a descriptive budget, which ideally breaks down where our money really went, right? So a budget really is the easiest way to organize your finances and to get organized, especially at the start of your debt repayment journey. All right. So you want to break down how much money is going to my bills and how much money do I have left as disposable income. Out of this disposable income, how much is going to savings? How much is going to debt repayment? So that you can actually be able to work that out. So at the beginning of this video, I already told you guys that I have a done for you Excel budget template that should help you to really be able to break down your finances. So again, just click the link in the description box where I have put down a link for you to grab the legacy budget tracker that is already done for you in terms of identifying the categories that you need to budget for, and then get started at planning exactly how much of your money will go where. That is one of the most important steps when you're now starting to applying this information that we are talking about. Okay. The second thing that you need to do is to actually start an emergency fund. Now, I have gotten this question quite a number of times. I think it's time we just put it to rest. People keep asking me, Coach, should I save first or pay my debt first? Or should I should I finish paying off my debt and then I can start saving? I have found that the best strategy is to do both at the same time. All right, because if I don't have an emergency fund and I don't have savings and I don't know exactly when an emergency will strike, all right, if at all an emergency comes, I will most definitely sink deeper into the debt that I am trying to get out of. This is one of the reasons I don't believe that just because I'm paying off debt, that now I shouldn't save or invest anywhere. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why I do what I do. This is why I preach living below your means, because if you're spending all the money that you earn, guys, you will have nothing left to pay off this debt. Neither will you have anything left to actually help you to be able to get out of this debt that you actually owe. All right, and this is why we have like the 50-30-20 budgeting rule, and this is how I personally use it. I know I've talked about this before here. I use 50% of my income to take care of monthly mandatory bills and expenses, so that I can have the other and then I have 20% going into wants, leisure, giving, entertainment, and that, because I mean we are human beings and those are some of the things we have to do with our money. But I have a 30% that I keep aside so that I can save, I can invest, and I can be able to get out of the debts that I already have, right? So you see, if you're that individual that spends 100% of what you earn, it's going to be impossible to save. It's going to be impossible to invest. It's going to be impossible to get out of debt. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why we say that you want to live below your means so that you can be able to spare some cash to go towards savings and to go towards debt repayment. So after you've come up with a budget, please, apart from your monthly bills and expenses, apart from this debt repayment, on the bare minimum, even if you don't invest anywhere else, at least start an emergency fund, okay? So that even when other things, because you see, this is life keeps happening. Someone will get sick, something will happen to your car, or just whatever it is that that would happen. Emergencies are not things that we can tell when and how they will come, which is one of the reasons why we must all have emergency funds. Okay, so start an emergency fund, take some 5,000, 10,000, however much you can be able to spare, and start building that emergency fund, so that even as you're on your debt recovery journey, if at all emergencies come up, you don't sink deeper into debt because you have to attend to that emergency. You already have an emergency fund that will ideally shield you from all that. Okay, Another tip that I will give you that will really support you in your journey to debt freedom is to identify ways in which you can be using windfall money. Windfall money is money that comes that you didn't expect, right? So outside of your salary, outside of your business, maybe you get a contract. If you get per diem, there are employed people who travel and maybe you have to get per diem. Or maybe just someone gifted you on your birthday or just randomly. When you already have this budget and you already have this plan, you've broken down all your debt, like you've done all these prerequisites that we've just discussed, whenever windfall money comes in, you're not gonna chop all of it. You already have a system, like a conveyor belt of sorts that's just working for you. So whenever I get windfall money, more often than not, I will resist the urge to get, like, I need an Apple phone, or rather an Apple Watch, or I have a whole wish list of things that I need. But I try as much as possible to really just avoid the consistent urge of every time windfall money comes in to get all these luxury things I want, and to really prioritize what is important to me. So for me, it really is keeping bumping up my emergency funds or clearing a debt that was pending and all that. So use windfall money to go towards these debts that you're trying to pay. When you do that and you do it consistently, that really supports you in your journey. Okay, another thing that goes without saying is please cut off unnecessary spending. Live below your means. As far as it depends, as much as it depends on you, live within or below your means if possible, so that you can free up some of this money that goes to wastage in food. I mean, a lot of us have things that are expired in our kitchen. A lot of us are, we are literally eating up money that we should use towards investing or debt repayment. Okay, so do an ironclad budget. Of course, allow some flexibility by having a miscellaneous spending budget. All this is in my budget tracker, by the way, guys, so you want to grab it. Okay, so yeah, ideally what you want to do is that you want to minimize on unnecessary spending. Just pick what your priorities are. At some point in your journey, you will have to sacrifice. We can't have it all. When I was trying to repay off my loans and all that, I wasn't having as much luxury as I would enjoy had I just freed up myself from debt, and then now I have extra money to go towards my goals and travel and things like those. So something has to give. You can't both have your cake and eat it. So you have to sacrifice some things. Whatever it is that you sacrifice, whether it's your money pedis or just cutting down on eating out or going out, whatever it is, try as much as possible to keep your expenses on the bare minimum so that you can free up money. We are not just suffering for nothing. And I think that's the mindset that I love to just encourage people to change. When you're minimizing or cutting down on expenses, a lot of us look at it as punishment, and that is why we won't benefit from it. But when you look at it as a reward system, like now that I've been able to free up this 5K that was going towards too much entertainment, I think I can direct this 5K to pay this debt off. Now that I've decided to maybe do my hair from home, get the products and do my hair from home, this 7,000 that used to go towards my hair, in the next year, as I'm trying to get out of debt, I will be using it to pay off this debt. So look at it more like a reward system rather than punishment for cutting your expenses. And finally, which I feel is the most important thing, earn more. I have said this so many times here on this channel. You must focus also on earning more. I had this somewhere before and it really resonated with me that in the long run, a higher income is more powerful than low expenses. And this really applies to people who are like, Coach, I have a budget. I am already funding my emergency fund. Every and all sorts of windfall money that comes goes towards this debt. I have minimized my expenses and I cannot go lower than this. And I'm still stuck. I'm still drowning in debt. So what's the solution for this person? You probably want to prioritize earning more. Okay, what are some of the options that you have to earn more? Is it negotiating a better salary with your employer? Is it starting a side hustle? Is it picking up something? Whatever it is, I think a lot of us are usually focused on like the hustle we already have or the job we already have, cutting down these expenses, but we don't get creative with regards to how much Can I earn more? Listen, there is no limit to how much we can earn. The limit is really here. It's really in what do you think about how much money you can earn, okay? There's a friend of mine who really made fun sometime, and it really made sense to me, and she was like, Susan, in Nairobi wezi kosa kitu ya kufanya. You know, as long as it is legal, right? You will get something to do if you're actively thinking of what you can do for extra income. So I hope these tips were helpful for you. Bottom line, what we are saying is that it's definitely not going to be easy. It requires discipline, it requires consistency, it requires support for some of us, but at the end of the day, it is actually doable. It is feasible as long as you come up with a good plan. So in case you don't already know, as a personal finance coach, I do offer services to help you come up with a working budget that will help you to cover bills, debt repayment, savings, and investment. So in case you need extra support, again, I've put a link down below for you to be able to book for some one-on-one personal coaching classes, and then we can be able to come up with a plan that works for you. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope it was helpful for you. In case you have any questions, you know the drill, okay? Drop them down in the comment section below, and I'm going to find some time to answer them. And also remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel so that you can be able to be notified every time I do a new upload. Thank you so much for watching. All the best in your debt freedom journey. I'll see you on the next episode of Finance Friday.